Perfect. All right. Well, welcome the Green Burial Chronicles with Morgan Oaks. I'm here today with Omar Rangel. And for those of you that don't know Omar, if you know anything about Morgan Oaks, you're probably like, oh my gosh, Omar is Morgan Oaks. So he's our lead services steward, and he is a blessing to our company and all the people that go out to Morgan Oaks. So I'm excited to chat with you today. And this, you guys, for those of you listening, is an inside scoop on what does it look like to work for Morgan Oaks, but also to work for the industry. So Omar, first off, tell us a little bit about you, and then a little bit about your role at Morgan Oaks.
42 years old. Been living in Northern California my whole life. Born in Yuba City, California, and live in Wheatland right now. I have 6 kids. Married to my wife for 18 years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then at Morgan Oaks, what does it mean to be the lead services steward? What does that entail?
So that entails a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
really. I oversee opening and closing of grave services. Do a lot of stuff, really.
Yeah. So you manage the services from start to finish, really.
Oh,
So
yes.
he's opening the graves, he's closing the graves, you're laying people to rest. You're guiding people through that process when they're out there in the actual moment of the service at the graveside. So that's awesome. But you also manage the habitat around
Yeah.
there, the trees,
All the little
the
stuff.
people that
Yeah.
come out there. Omar can probably tell us a story about every person out there almost. So
Pretty
you've been
much.
there from startup, but how long have you been in the industry? Where did you start in this?
So I started in 2014 in Sacramento at Sacramento Memorial Lawn.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've been there. Well, I started there and then came to Morgan Oaks in 2020,
Yeah.
August of 2020.
So what brought you to Morgan Oaks? Like, were you like, oh, I just want to know what Green Burial is? Or you were like, no, something else?
So, I had heard about Green Burial through a previous, supervisor,
Hmm.
and he kind of, let me in on, that, they were opening a Green Burial cemetery, and it was closer to home. So for me, it was like a win-win,
Yeah.
like I'm closer to home. I'm not having to commute all the way to Sacramento, even though, I grew to like working in the industry, but also working at, Sacramento
Hmm.
Memorial Lawn, but now working at Morgan Oaks, that's my new place,
Yeah.
so.
When people say Morgan Oaks, they're like, Omar, he's been there forever. So you have quite a bit of years of experience. I mean, far more than any of us have that have worked there. So if you're listening and you're like, you hear me, but honestly, Omar is who I go to all the time. Omar, can we do this? Omar, what do you think about this? Omar, is this a thing? So what does a typical day look like for you at the preserve?
So for me, a typical day is, I'll come in, turn on to Fleming, and, I'll just patrol, make sure, I'll look at the roadsides, make
Hmm.
sure there's no litter.
Hmm.
Because, we are out in the back roads. Sometimes we get people that, like to, go down the back roads and
Yeah.
throw like empty, bottles, whatever,
Do silly
on the
stuff.
side of the road. So I'll, as I'm coming into work, I'll look for those things, just check out the property from the outside.
Yep.
And then once, you come in, go to the front, open up the office, clean, things, up there, get it ready for you guys,
Thank
before you
you.
guys come in, and, so yeah.
And then go check the graves, or
Yeah.
what's next?
So then after that, I'll go, and check graves, interim areas, make sure graves aren't sunken, settling, because we get settling. So
Mhm,
we'll go
mhm.
check that out. Check on headstones and all that type of
Yeah.
stuff.
Prepare, like
Yeah.
today we're preparing for a
Yeah.
burial after this.
Today we have a
So
burial.
today you would come in, yesterday you have prepared the plot, meaning you
Yes.
dug the hole,
Yes,
measured it
we
out,
opened.
make sure it looks good, and then today you would come up, set up for the graveside service.
Yes.
So I would say too, like, a typical day is not a service,
Oh,
right?
yes,
And
yes.
then today is a special day as a
Yeah.
service.
On the service day,
It's busy.
yeah, it's a little more hectic, I want to say, in the beginning, but just trying to get everything ready and get it prepared for families, making sure everything's good to go, and for us as well, our standards and whatnot. I'm trying to provide that for families. So
Of course. Omar, how many services have I made you do in one day? How
uh
many did we do that one day when it was crazy? 3?
yeah, we did 3. We did 2 full burials and then a pet burial as well,
That was crazy.
and that was pretty much a all day thing.
Omar was digging and burying all day. Okay, so You've worked in both, right? A green burial and a traditional
Yes,
conventional.
conventional.
Okay,
Yes.
so what do you see as the biggest differences for those people that are listening? If they're like, "Well, I'm kind of leading towards the conventional," but like, what do you see as the difference? And then, do you like one over the other?
So for me, there is a big difference, in conventional cemetery, a lot of people don't really realize that, when you are opening up a grave, you are putting in a concrete liner, a vault,
Hmm.
essentially. And for some people, you'll put in, if it's a full burial, you'll put in a metal casket or a,
Mm,
a wooden casket. Those caskets have, chemicals in them,
right.
and they, saturate the earth, the groundwater, and people don't realize that. I've for firsthand seen, you know, when we've opened up a grave and seen groundwater that was full because you get the runoff, you get the saturation, those graves fill up with water,
Yeah.
and we'll go to pull up a a lid, and it'll be full of water, and you'll just look at it and it'll be filmy, it'll be like
Mm,
greasy looking,
yeah.
almost kind of like you know oil
Yeah.
mixed with water.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the contamination,
Mm, oof.
and it's pretty gross.
And you can't go anywhere because you vaulted
No,
it. That's the
it stays
purpose.
there. There's nowhere to go unless you pump it out, and that's what we'd have to do. We'd have to pump it out, and we're in that. We would have to get in the hole, pump that water out. So we're kind of risking our health, I guess,
Yeah.
in that sense. And in natural burial, we don't run into those issues, and the casket is biodegradable, decomposes, goes back into the earth. We're not contaminating anything.
Yeah. So from someone like, let's just say you didn't work for Morgan Oaks and you left and now your loved one has passed, would you pick one over the other? And like, what would be the reason you would pick it?
I would pick green burial.
Yeah.
Just so for me, it'd probably be more cost effective. But not
Mm,
only that, but just thinking about the chemical standpoint of that,
hmm.
like thinking about that and you wanting to, the earth being polluted, the groundwater being polluted. You don't want to do that for your future generations. Like I have kids, I have 6 kids. Like I'm saying, I don't want them to have to deal with, like things down the road that are bad for,
Yeah.
us
Yeah. I
right
mean,
now.
and you worked at this other funeral home, and I mean, you obviously were there long enough to know the prices were probably crazy
Oh
because you
yeah.
have to metal
Yes.
casket, vault it, all
Yeah.
those things. And so you hit on something that, yes, we want to do what's good for the earth, but also you've seen
The
how much
price
it
price
costs.
point. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
is probably what, like 3 times what
Oh
we
yeah.
are? Easy.
Easily.
Ugh,
Easily. Yeah.
that's crazy. And that's not even, there's like smaller cemeteries and then there's these
Yeah.
huge ones that are way
Yeah. Yeah,
outrageous.
and not to mention certain cemeteries have areas that are nicer than others, and that's
Mm,
even the price point gets higher on
that's
those.
crazy.
So
And that's sad,
yeah,
like when people are grieving. So,
yeah.
can you share a favorite memory so far, or like a family you comforted, somebody that to this point?
To this point, there's a lot of memories. I will say this one that stands out is we I had a family where we were, I think I want to say it was a cremation, and we ended up putting their loved one to rest, and then afterwards the family grieves, they're in solace and stuff, and but you just see like a butterfly come out of
Mm,
nowhere, and it's just like floating around, and they're like, oh, that's like a sign that my loved one was here because she loved butterflies.
that's crazy, huh?
So yeah, you just get little things like that that make you think, like it's kind of weird, like, but there's something there,
Yeah.
like a little gust of wind, like
Uh, we had
we
that
get.
recently, and it
Yes.
wasn't a little gust. It was a really big gust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
there's, yeah, signs like that, like little, just little things that, kind of comfort the family, like let them know like
Hmm.
there is something, maybe afterlife,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. And you've seen it all. So what does this industry mean to you?
Um it means a lot. I mean, like, I've been, death has been a part of, me for a long time.
Hmm.
And, just, knowing that I can be there for somebody, comfort them in
Hmm.
their time of need,
Hmm.
that means a lot to me.
Yeah. Omar and I were talking, it's about a 40-minute drive from the cemetery to here. And I think we both share like since we're 40, I'm 43 years young. So as Omar wrote in his thing, he's 42 years old young. Um we've both dealt with a lot of death and a lot of death close to us at a young age. And I think most people don't want to talk about death or they haven't had to deal with it until it becomes, now you're 40 and your parents are passing. But, I was dealing with death in, first and second grade. We had a thing in our family where every December somebody died. So December for 6 years straight. And so in December would come around year 7 and we'd be like, everybody, you're not allowed to leave the house, go get checked up. And you've dealt with a lot of traumatic deaths in
Yes.
your life. And so I think we can share that like we've experienced it. And so now we know how to support those
Yes.
families, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that's huge in this industry is you're not just coming to a place where, oh yeah, we're going to take your money and then this is the process and this is the flow. We know exactly what these people are dealing with.
Yeah, we want to go like above and
Yeah.
beyond that to, help them.
And you always do that. And so I think that's awesome. Okay, so tell me how you and your team or all of us, how do we maintain the trails, the burial sites? Like what are some of the things that we do? Because we are regulated by the state.
Yes,
So we do
yes.
have to maintain those. What does that look like from your side?
So, in the springtime, we do get a lot of, like weeds or whatever,
Hmm.
whatnot that you get on the trails. We, try to, take care of those pre-hand.
Yeah.
So we'll either drag the trails, like, we do, um, try to fill them in, if we do have like ruts or whatnot. And then burials, I want to say, like I said, we'll go and try to make sure we stay on top of, if grave settles or if we have sinking, we'll make sure that we go back and
Yeah.
backfill right away.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the headstones and all that.
Yeah.
But we try to, maintain as much as we can. And
Yeah. And I think too, like if they haven't been out on the property, we mow the
Yes.
big sections twice a year.
yes.
We don't,
Yeah.
but we have people that do. You guys tell me a little bit about the trees. Like, what do you do for maintaining the trees? What does that look like?
So the trees will go through and make sure there's no diseases on them. So we'll try to upkeep on that. Water them, with our schedule, during late spring. Then summertime is pretty much just watering the
Yeah.
trees. But yeah, keeping an eye on them, making sure, like I said, there's no diseases and
Do you
stuff
take
on
a
'em.
hose out there to water them?
So we have a water wagon right now that we use, and we'll go and fill water bags
Yeah.
that are on each tree.
Everybody always is like, what are those green things on the
Yeah.
trees? So those are water bags. And back in the day when we first started this, we would move those water bags.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Omar's job and Jake at the time would be like literally moving water
Moving
bags.
water
And then
bags.
we outsmarted the system and just said, get a water bag for every tree.
Every
This
tree,
is a
yes.
nightmare for
Yes.
these guys. So I'm sure you were like, thank you, Stephanie, for figuring that out and team. Where do you see like, or no, let's do this. Like, what are some misconceptions that you think people, when they think of green burial, like if you're out and about talking to people, what are things that you hear them say like, oh, that's like, what are misconceptions?
Misconceptions, I want to say a lot of people kind of think about like the wildlife. They're like, is my, loved one going to get uncovered or
Yes,
whatever by
always.
a wild animal? And that does not happen.
No.
No. We make sure like, we have a step process that we do to make sure that doesn't happen. So
That's the biggest one.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I remember asking you, so we bury like 4.5 feet,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. And it's because at that level is, where we get the microorganisms that break down, the body, the casket, everything biodegrades at that level faster.
Did you know that before you came to Morgan Oaks?
No, I didn't.
So you've had to learn a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there are some things that are different, right? Most
Yes.
cemeteries you probably did 6 feet deep.
Yeah. We went like around 6, I want to say. And then we actually went deeper because we'd go double.
Oh,
Because we
okay.
had to stack on top of each other.
Because you
So-
can do that at
Yes,
a traditional,
yeah.
but you can't do that here.
Yeah. No.
Okay. What would that look like if you wanted to disinter the person on the bottom?
So it would be a big process, to do that. We'd have to actually disinter the person that's on top, if they are,
Yeah.
passed away and
Yeah.
that person's there. Sometimes they would do a preset where you already put the vault on top. So the person would be buried and then they put their vault on top. So we'd have to either take off the lid and then take out the old vault and then, take their lid off and then disinter them.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So we don't do that at Morgan
Oh,
Oaks.
no.
We don't, number one, we don't
We
vault,
don't.
and we bury side by side.
Yes.
So we wouldn't be able to do on top. So thank goodness, but that's a lot. Okay. I would say so misconceptions for sure. Are the animals going to dig up our grave because there's no vaulting? The answer is absolutely not.
Yes.
I think the other one I get a lot is like, does the runoff from the bodies affect the water? No.
Right.
Is
No.
it legal?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like we're not running a scheme at
Right,
Morgan Oaks. Those are really big ones, I think. People ask if we do headstones. Yes, but that's not a misconception. But yeah, the animal one is really interesting. We get that a lot.
Yeah.
So, okay, good. What do you think? What do you wish more people understood about just the end of life process? Is since you've been one personally, you've been through it a lot. But number two, you've been in the industry a lot. So
Yeah.
what do you wish people knew or like understood?
There's just different options like us, Green Burial, we're a different option, a cheaper option, simpler, eco-friendly. There's different options. There's, I'm guessing organizations that help you try to choose a spot to, but for me, I would say, Green Burial's the way to
Of
go.
course you would, as you should.
Right,
Yes.
right.
And Omar, like, I know for me personally, I was too young to understand it, but as I've gotten older, and probably for you too, for the people that have passed in my life, my dad is more recent. The listeners, I talk about him a lot, and he didn't have anything planned.
Right.
And we were just talking
Pre-planning.
in the car about like, you just don't know if tomorrow, as morbid as it sounds, you don't know if tomorrow is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, you've been in long enough. We've seen a lot of things in just the 5 years at Morgan Oaks. Like,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on like pre-planning and things like that?
It's important. It, helps families out. Then you don't have to deal with that
Mhm.
at the time of death. Like we've had to deal with that in my family. It's hard
Yeah.
at that time because, you're wanting to grieve, but it's kind of hard to grieve, and having to plan that out at the time. So pre-planning is a better thing in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, and like, I mean, think about the times where you've had to deal with it and what we've seen at Morgan Oaks.
Right.
Now they're coming, they're grieving.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the loss of a child, Jenny Franklin, who we had
Yeah.
on the podcast. That was very traumatic. And now you're picking a plot and paying this bill and
Yeah.
dealing
All
with
these
all these
things.
things.
Yes.
Like, and not that you ever expect for your child to pass,
Tap-
but
yeah.
for our ages and even younger and above, like imagine if you could just walk in and say, so and so passed, and here's just handle it. Like that is what we hope to
Right.
do, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're like, okay, Steph and I have been talking that you want the listeners to know in the next 5 to 10 years at Morgan Oaks that we see changing? Is there anything that we're doing? I'm trying to think if there is. Have we talked about anything big?
I don't know.
I don't think
I don't
so.
think so.
I mean, our last big change was the Jewish garden.
Yes,
We put
yes.
that in, right? Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, maybe later down the road, expanding, maybe
Yeah.
adding a new interment area
Yeah.
for different cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah, we're always open to that,
Yeah,
right? Having
yeah.
other cultures come in.
Yeah.
So that would be great. But I'm trying to think, as far as green burial goes, I know we're going to start seeing some composting
Yes.
coming into play.
Yeah.
Have you done any research on that?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I have. Yeah.
So we have some inquiries on that. We'll probably see some aquamation, cremation remains come
Yeah.
in. But otherwise, I think, you can probably say too, like, we don't want to make Morgan Oaks just a big burial ground.
Oh yeah.
So we probably won't do too much, but we hope that the community opens up to come out and walk
Yeah.
their dogs and
Yeah.
say hello for
Use
sure.
our property.
Yeah.
Yeah. Walk our trails.
You told me
Yeah.
today we have a man that comes out and
Oh,
runs.
yeah.
How many
He-
miles does he do?
Matt, he does at least, he told me 6 to 9 miles each time he comes out. He does triathlon, Spartan races. Shout out to Scott. Yeah.
He's there, you guys, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Scott is there. I was telling Omar, I see him every day. And when it's the hottest days, he's there at the hottest time of the day.
Yeah.
Like, shout out to Scott for sure. Okay. So if someone's considering green burial, what advice would you give them?
Advice, like, we've been saying, it's a cheaper option.
Yeah.
It's a eco-friendlier option. Just think about it down the road. Like, it's just better for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come out and see you, tour
Yeah.
with you, tour
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah.
And then I love this question. What gives you the most meaning at work every day?
just, coming into work, just being, out there trying to help families, just engaging with families, just trying to help somebody wherever I can,
I love that.
being there to comfort them.
Yeah. And you guys, if you are ever out on the property, just know that if you stopped and talked to Omar, you could ask him any question. He is a wealth of knowledge. You could tell him your life story. He would listen. He's one of the kindest people that I've ever gotten to work for, or work with and for. And so, stop and say hello, ask a question. If you see something on the property that you're like, fix this, or I wish we had this.
Any ideas?
Yes,
That
we
works.
love
Yeah.
ideas.
Feedback. Yeah, that's
Yes,
good.
of course, of course. We don't take offense to it. We love it. Omar, I do ask on your questionnaire, tell us a fun fact about you.
Fun fact. So me and my family, we love to do Halloween big. We, do our whole yard and Nightmare Before Christmas. So
Oh my
our
gosh.
house in Wheatland on Mesa Street, the whole yard, Nightmare Before Christmas. It's
love
a
it.
family thing every year, family tradition.
So now everyone's going to drive by your house on Mesa Street to go look at it. You'll have to take
Hopefully,
pictures and
yes.
we'll post it for
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Any final thoughts you want to leave the listeners with, or anything you want to say about Morgan Oaks, the process, the industry, anything at all?
I mean, just give us a try, just come out, tour our property and, just see what Green Barrel is all about.
Okay, I do have one more question. I know that was like my last question, but what is your most favorite thing? I know I asked what is your meaningful, but what's your favorite thing about working at Morgan Oaks?
Favorite thing, just being out in nature. Yeah, serene, just getting those days, those beautiful days. Even when it's stormy out, it's nice being out there.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that. I was like, everyone always comes to the office and says, man, this is not a bad place to show up to work every day.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
peaceful.
Yes.
I know you don't have anybody out there. Having my dad out there, I always tell people, especially lately, the healing journey for me has been so much better. Walking those trails, like just being in nature and
Yeah.
quiet and
Yeah.
peaceful. And you've worked in a cemetery,
Yeah.
and they're just sad and
Yeah.
hopeless and wah wah. And
Yeah.
so I love that we can go out there and just sit and be. And
Yes.
that's great, Okay. Well, thank you again. So if you're listening, obviously you found us on our podcast. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, and we're on YouTube. So you can find us in any of those social media platforms. And as always, thank you for listening. Walk gently, remember deeply, and celebrate the legacy of life. Thank you, Omar, so much for today.
You're welcome.